We just released a blog today that goes over egg donations and the Canadian regulations surrounding that to give our audience a little bit of context before today. So all very excited. I'm just... So we do have a couple people on today, which is amazing. We've got a few people in our audience, so it is a Q&A. So we're excited to have Petra on. Hi, Petra.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for coming on. So this is Petra Dach. She is the Canadian representative, and she's a surrogate and egg donor support for extraordinary conceptions. So she's here today. We're going to talk all things egg donation. So thanks for coming on, Petra.
My pleasure.
So we've got a couple questions for you. The first question being, today we're going to go through kind of deciding on egg donation and what that looks like. Can you give us a little bit of context surrounding that?
Yeah, I mean, it will all start with your conversation with your fertility physician, your IVF doctor, or your OBGYN, whoever that may be, who's supporting you through your fertility journey. So the discussion will certainly happen there, and I think that's the best place to start, is to, go through some testing perhaps to determine whether or not you do need an egg donor for medical reasons, or perhaps you're already sure for social reasons that you might need an egg donor. For example, if you're a single male or in a same-sex male relationship, obviously you will need that help as well. But so that's where the conversation is definitely going to start. I think there's lots of factors to consider in deciding to move forward with this journey. I think especially for heterosexual couples, it can be a difficult decision of whether or not to continue maybe trying through IVF with your own genetics, or, just making that decision to move forward with egg donation. Obviously, for psychosocial reasons, that's going to be a very difficult decision for some. When you're going through that, I think it's really, really important and beneficial to speak with a fertility counselor to help you go through the different aspects of that decision. There's definitely a process emotionally to make that decision moving forward. And then there's also the third aspect. So we've discussed medical, psychosocial, and then financial. There is a big financial consideration as well to move forward with egg donation. It's maybe not affordable by everyone. So that's the decision to make. And, agencies like ours, we're here to help to discuss what that financial investment looks like, and to see if we can help make it work for you. And of course, Fertility Friends Foundation is also a great resource to help with that as well.
Yes, thank you for that overview. Just to get an idea of kind of for our audience, like who actually needs like an egg donor? Like I know you went through a few, but is it just people with low ovarian reserves, or is it kind of going into same-sex couples? But I know, like, from the experience at and hearing about different clinics and organizations, I mean, it's such an emotional journey to actually consider an egg donor, egg donation. Can you take us through kind of, for our audience, what that looks like in a sense of kind of needing one?
Yeah, I mean, for medical reasons, if you're looking into egg donation, probably the primary reason could be low serve or advanced maternal age. As we all know, eggs don't always have the same quality as we age as women compared to when we were younger. So that might be a reason for it, is low quality as well as low quantity of eggs available to use. There might also be, chronic illnesses that could affect the quality of the eggs. We've worked with patients who've maybe had cancer in the past and no longer have viable eggs to use. There are women women who may not have an ovary or have two ovaries anymore for various reasons. So there are various reasons where, you know, medically speaking, egg donation is required for women to be able to conceive. And then the social reasons we discussed is if, you know, we're working with a single male or a male couple, where obviously they don't have their own eggs.
Yeah, that's great because there's several different variations on when and why you would need one. So when we look at actually choosing the egg donor, is there some type of like a matching process, or what should be considered in your choice?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you sign up with an agency, they will have usually an online catalog of egg donors that you can choose from. Now, there are different types of agencies to work with. Extraordinary Conceptions only works with live egg donors, so it's a fresh egg donation. Whereas there's also egg banks that you can choose from, which have frozen eggs. Both types of facilities will have profiles that you can look at with information about the egg donors that are available, such as pictures, their physical characteristics, family traits and medical history, their education, their personality traits. So these are all things that you will likely see in an egg donor profile. So when you're getting started, what I always like to recommend is to just start browsing and see kind of what stands out to you as important. You might already know that, let's say, especially for some people, physical traits are very important to them, to, you know, find an egg donor that looks like them or resembles them, or perhaps has some similar ethnicities. And other parents are really interested in the education or personality traits. So everybody's different in that decision. And usually at an agency, you'll have a special one-on-one relationship with that coordinator you're working with. And that person is going to be able to recommend donor profiles to you as we kind of learn what you're looking for.
Right. So you go through that matching process, you find a match, and then what's the next step?
Yeah, so during the matching process, there's going to be a lot of discussion taking place, especially if you're working with an agency that provides fresh egg donors. We'll still have to check with that donor to see if she's available to go to your clinic, especially if it's in a different city from where she lives. But once you're matched, there will be a process to begin the screening with your IVF clinic. So that's really going to be the first step, is to have that egg donor go to your IVF facility to have that screening completed. This screening will include a physical assessment, a lot of blood work, so that'll include the infectious diseases blood work required by Health Canada, as well as blood work to make sure that she's healthy and in good conditioning, drug testing. There might also be genetic carrier testing to see if she's a genetic carrier for any known diseases, as well as ultrasound, of course, and hormonal panel. So they'll do the full fertility workup on the egg donor as well. So that'll be all of the screening that she will go through. Usually it's going to take 1 day to do all of that screening. And she will also do a counseling assessment with a counselor at the fertility clinic or outside of the fertility clinic. It's quite a lot.
It is, but you know, it's very similar for what you know you need, in a sense of going through all the details and making sure that everything is perfect before the transfer takes place. And so that's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that, because I know a lot of people don't know how much is involved. There's a lot involved, so yeah, it's good to have that outline. So I know you touched on a little bit about like the process but what happens once it's completed? Like, what are the next steps after that?
Yeah, so typically once the screening is completed, you may or may not have a legal agreement with the egg donor. In Canada, It's not necessarily required that you have a legal agreement with an anonymous donor, but it is a requirement if she is a known donor. With some agencies, it is a requirement regardless. So with Extraordinary Conceptions, we do a legal agreement for every single donation, no matter what position it is, known or anonymous. We do find that's very important to just protect all parties. So the Canadian lawyers will draft those legal agreements to discuss parentage, the reimbursements, things of that nature. And it's usually quite a long, 8 to 10 page document that will outline very different scenarios that you might not even consider. So it's best to speak to a fertility lawyer regarding those contracts and what they look like. Those contracts can take a few weeks to get together, depending on how fast everybody gets back and forth. The donor will have her own lawyer as well to represent her and answer her questions and make sure she understands what she's signing. And then once that's done, the legal clearance will be issued to the clinic as well as the agency to let us all know that the donor is ready to start her IVF cycle. And from there, we will book the calendar for that IVF, usually from her next menstrual cycle.
Right. Okay. Yep. No, that's perfect. Thank you for that. So I know you touched a little bit on costs. Can you describe what kind of costs are involved?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the egg donation, there's going to be separate costs through the agency and for that specific relationship. And then there's going to be separate costs with the IVF clinic. So the IVF clinic, put simply, you're going to be paying for the screening and procedure costs as well as the medications for that egg donor. So that's going to be separate. And those are the costs that you'll have to discuss with your IVF clinic directly. Through the agency, typically the agency will hold a trust where the funds will go, and the trust will pay for items such as travel, of course the agency services, if there's any trust account management fees, as well as the donor's reimbursement, psychological screening, the legal fees for both the parents as well as the egg donor. And let me think, if there's any insurance required for the egg donor, then that will come out of the trust as well. So those are the kind of the different costs that you'll have to consider. Typically, I would say, depending on whether an egg donor is local or traveling, an egg donation can cost on the agency side anywhere from about $20,000 to $30,000.
No, it's good to have an idea of costs and like you said, all the steps involved with the fertility clinic, the legal teams, the agencies, intended parents, the egg donor. And there's several people involved to make it an amazing experience. I'm sure, being a part of your organization, how many, exciting stories and really heartfelt stories that you've heard where, egg donation creates, this family that this couple is, or an individual has always wanted.
Yeah.
So,
the best part of our job is when we get to find out that, there's a pregnancy successfully, or when we get those baby photos at the end of the journey, that just honestly makes our whole job worth it. And it's the best part.
I know it would be just to know that, you're a part of this process of making their dreams come true. They've, either struggled with infertility or cannot conceive at all themselves, but just knowing that your organization is here for them and taking them through all the steps that you took us through today. It's just amazing that there's people out there like yourself.
Thank you. Absolutely. We're here to help, and we all love our job. At Extraordinary Conceptions, we have quite a large team on the egg donor side. So you'll always have a coordinator that you'll work with specifically, but we always have a backup team. We have travel specialists, we have insurance specialists. So we really try and make it as easy as possible during a very difficult time. We try and take it all off of the parents' hands. So hopefully we can do that for anybody looking, and we're happy to answer any more questions that people might have.
Yes, I've said hello to several people here. I've yet to see any questions, but I can put that out to the audience. If you have any questions for Petra, please send them over to us, and then we can answer them. If we do receive some, you know, after, I see a lot of hearts coming. After, I can definitely reach out to Petra and get those answers as well. And I'll have Petra's information and contact information available, you know, for anyone. I know this is a big deal for anyone that's either going through it or thinking about it. It is a big decision, but I know that there's organizations out there like Extraordinary Conceptions that can take you through this and kind of calm and really create some clarity around egg donation. So thank you for coming on today. Appreciate it, Petra.
No problem. I saw a question there about where we're located.
Those of us that was late, remind us where you are located.
Yeah, so I'm currently just outside of the GTA, so I'm our Canadian representative that works with all of our Canadian clients with Extraordinary Conceptions. However, our head office is in California. So we kind of have a unique model where we do have egg donors in both countries, in Canada and the US, and donors can travel to Canada from the United States if needed, if you're looking at a particular donor. So we have that unique model at Extraordinary Conceptions. I also wanted to say too, you know, there's no commitment or, you know, nothing you need to pay with our agency. If you just want to ask questions or if you want to sign up and start looking at the egg donor profiles, you know, that's totally non-committal, no payment needed. So we only ask for payment once you've chosen to move ahead and match with an egg donor. So we try and take that stress away, especially during that exploration process.
Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, there's a lot of questions that can be asked, so it's good, you know, that you can do that for everyone. So Petra was able to answer that about, oh, sorry, the agency fees. Is it more expensive because you work with Canadians and Americans?
So we do have different agency fees for different programs that we offer. So if anybody wants to see the full breakdown of our pricing, then they can certainly reach out to me and I can share that with them.
Perfect. Okay, great. I'll leave that information for our audience as well. Fantastic. Okay, well, thanks for your time, Petra. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You're welcome. You too.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.